AI is rapidly eliminating the administrative tasks that once formed the foundation of entry-level jobs. Simultaneously, many employers are now demanding as much as 3 years relevant work experience for roles that are labelled as entry-level. Gen Z represents 18% of our workforce, and that's going to grow to 30% by 2030. This early careers crisis threatens to create a massive future talent shortage. If Gen Z can't get started in their careers, where will our future workforce come from? And who will lead our organisations?
Support for this podcast comes from Plum. Plum is a revolutionary workforce solutions provider that knows when people flourish, business thrives. With their powerful platform, Plum Thrive, you can unlock science-based data to help you measure and match human potential to job needs. Plum Thrive provides personalised career insights, improves quality of hire, and creates high-performing teams from a single, simple-to-use platform. Want to learn more? Visit www.plum.io and discover all the ways that Plum can help you thrive.
This is my show.
Hi there, this is Matt Alder. Welcome to episode 701 of Recruiting Future, the podcast that helps talent acquisition teams drive measurable value by developing strategic capability in foresight, influence, talent, and technology. In this episode, we'll be focusing specifically on talent. The early careers landscape is experiencing unprecedented disruption. While AI offers opportunities to transform how organizations operate, it eliminates many administrative tasks that once formed the foundation of entry-level positions. At the same time, employers are rigidly demanding years of experience and specific technical skills for roles labelled as entry-level, leaving Gen Z unable to even begin their careers and risking their disconnection from the workforce altogether. So, how can talent acquisition professionals transform this crisis into an opportunity? My guest this week is Caitlin McGregor, CEO and co-founder of Plum. Caitlin shows us how employers can leverage Gen Z as the first AI-native workforce who don't have to unlearn the old ways of working. They can start with AI-powered approaches from day one without the burden of how things used to be done. But accessing this advantage requires shifting focus towards durable skills like innovation, adaptation, and communication, not the hard, perishable skills that most employers are currently looking for. Hi, Caitlin, and welcome back to the podcast.
Hi, I'm excited to be here again. Thanks for having me.
Always a pleasure to talk to you. Could you just quickly introduce yourself and tell everyone what you do if they've not listened to you on the podcast before?
So my name's Caitlin McGregor. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Plum, and we are the leading soft skills assessment for high volume early career hires and employee development.
Now, in pretty much every podcast I've recorded in the last sort of 12 months, I've started with asking a question about disruption and what's going on. And we focus a lot on AI and other disruptions in talent acquisition, but perhaps don't talk broadly enough about how it's disrupting other areas of business, but in particular, how it's disrupting the way that we think about things like careers. I mean, give us your perspective. How is it disrupting work? How is it sort of potentially changing that concept of the linear career that we're all so used to?
I mean, I think for a while we've been talking about how the traditional career ladder is being disrupted, and it's more about a career lattice. So, becoming a BDR doesn't make you the best sales rep, doesn't make you the best sales leader. People are going to change careers much more often now. But what's missed in the conversation is really thinking about how careers start, the on-ramp into careers, that there's a fundamental disruption that's happening in the Gen Z population, 18 to 28-year-olds, how are they getting the first 3 years of their work experience? Because most entry-level jobs, over 60% of entry-level jobs require 3 years of prior work experience. So how are they getting that experience? And traditionally, those early career entry-level jobs have a lot of administrative tasks to them, a lot of repetition. And guess what? AI is disrupting the repetitive administrative type tasks. So we're having this time where AI is coming for a lot of those entry level jobs. So how are people going to be onboarded into their careers and get those first years of experience? And I don't think we're realizing the impact that AI is having first and foremost on early careers.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I think been talking about AI on the podcast actually since about 2018 when things were, machine learning and AI and things like that. And all that time, and especially the last sort of 2 years, not many people have talked about that disruption to early careers. And I think that kind of obsession with experience is just still there. I mean, I was reading an article earlier in the week about internships and how there's a slight drop in internships, but they were still very much a thing. But actually, employers were looking for interns who'd already been interns or who had previous experience in their industry. So it's just kind of an obsession. And as you say, it's just not going to work moving forward, is it?
Yeah. I mean, it also makes us reevaluate, what are we even asking for Gen Zs that make up, almost 20% of the workforce. It's 18% of the workforce, and they're projected to grow to 30% by 2030. So we're talking about a massive part of the population. And when we're asking for them to meet certain job requirements, are we thinking about it through the right lens? I mean, if we go back and think about baby boomers, when they were entering the workforce, when their careers developed, there was a time where all of a sudden job requirements were, do you know how to use a desktop computer? Do you know how to use Microsoft Word? Do you know how to use Excel? Because there was a difference between people that were computer literate and people that weren't. And all of a sudden, people that were doing things manually, doesn't matter if they were doing it for 10, 20 years, all of a sudden, it didn't matter if you knew how to do accounting manually. It was, do you now know how to use a computer and Excel? And that was the most valuable skill set. When we're looking at early careers and we're looking at Gen Zs, are we still applying an old lens to how we should be evaluating that talent? Do I really want somebody that's been doing marketing for the last 10 years not using Gen AI? Do I really want a product manager who's doing discovery calls without using transcripts and analyzing those transcripts and using templates and using Gen AI to fill those templates? Like, we have an opportunity to look at this new generation as a clean slate. They have an opportunity to do things from an AI first perspective and not have to train them out of old ways of doing things. They can invent from day one how to be more efficient and how to use this technology. And so instead of seeing it as a disadvantage that they don't have 3-5 years of experience, we can see them as native Gen AI users and an opportunity to be more efficient, which means, okay, if the old way of measuring them doesn't work, it opens the question to, okay, if they are this, new opportunity for employers and to benefit early careers in a new way, how should we be evaluating them?
It's such a great point because they are the closest thing we currently have to a kind of an AI native generation, or at least a generation that can start in their careers unburdened by how things were done before and all that kind of stuff. So it's a huge opportunity for everyone. So how do we kind of unlock those talents? How do companies sort of, look at, rather than looking for interns who've already been interns or already worked in their industry or have contacts in their industry, how can they kind of view people coming into the workforce and make sure they're getting the right people for their organization?
Well, the great news is there's another trend that everybody's been talking about. I just think we have an opportunity to evolve how we talk about that trend and think about it slightly differently. But already there's momentum in this direction that we can kind of harness, which is the idea of becoming a skills-based organization. I think in principle, companies, governments, organizations that say they want to become skills-based, they're trying to get away from that past experience, where somebody went to school, where they previously worked. But when we look at how it's being applied in practice, it's still coming back down to scraping a whole bunch of keywords and looking still at, okay, I don't care if they did a computer science degree for 4 years at this name brand school, but I still want them to have Python experience. I still want them to have Java experience. It still comes down to the keywords. And we're looking still at where's that proof point that they've used Salesforce before? Where's that proof point that they've, worked at this type of company from my industry before? We're still using skills-based to kind of wash but still use old methods of measurement just under a new name. And so I think the opportunity is to actually lean into what skills-based should represent, which is when you look at the data of what predicts performance, long-term performance, and when you look at what predicts long-term retention, not those hard skills that really should be called perishable skills, because within 2.5 years, 50% of hard skills, technical hard skills are no longer relevant. I like to use the example of that, 6 years ago, everybody wanted to hire a Ruby on Rails developer. Now it's a joke. Nobody wants to hire a Ruby on Rails developer because unless you're trying to keep an old piece of technology alive, nobody's coding in that language anymore. So there's this need to move away from the perishable skills and instead focus on the durable skills, which are those soft transferable skills. And I, really credit the education sector and for really embracing the term durable skills, looking at, those soft transferable skills that are so critical because they're going to endure throughout somebody's career. They're going to be the most predictive and most important for success long-term. And industrial organizational psychologists have decades of research showing that those durable skills, innovation, communication, execution, actually are the things that predict performance and retention. And when you think about AI, you need somebody that is going to be thinking how to do these jobs differently than before, how to find new out-of-the-box ways of doing things. That's innovation. You're going to need somebody that is very comfortable of iterating and figuring things out and doing things differently as time evolves. That's adaptation. You're going to need somebody that's really good at communicating to others. Hey, I took this different approach and I came up with these different outcomes, and this is how we can all benefit from it. That's communication. It's somebody that's going to be rolling up their sleeves and experimenting until they find a better, more efficient way forward. And it's not based on past, it's based on figuring it out in the moment and that ability to be agile in the moment. And those are all durable skills. So the answer is measure those first. Find the people that align to the behaviors that you are looking for in your roles. You want somebody to be talking to customers? Great. Find somebody who really enjoys managing stakeholders and enjoys, working with other people. It's just all about those durable skills.
Talk us through the role assessment can now play in measuring those.
I think everybody's come across, a psychometric assessment one time in their career. It may be Myers-Briggs, which just makes me cringe because, it's not backed by science. And so there's a lot of re-educating to be done. But if you've had a really good assessment, there's this mirror effect where you're like, wow, that's me. That really expresses me. The problem in the industry up until now is that those assessments have had a horrible candidate experience. They've been too long. They have provided no value to the candidate. They've been kind of this black box of you do it for the employer. You have to do different ones for different jobs, different employers. There's no benefit to the person. So they got a really bad rap between a bunch of, things like Myers-Briggs that didn't have the science behind it and others that had the science, but just had horrible experiences associated with them. And then the third part was cost. They used to charge per assessment. And so it was really, really costly to think about doing this, top of funnel on everybody. So now in 2025, believe it or not, you can find assessments that actually are assessments that candidates want to take. At Plum, we have a 93% completion rate, and 94% of candidates say that they find value in their Plum profile. They actually thank employers for the opportunity to be seen, not for what they've done historically, but based on what they could do if given the opportunity. So you can have a really positive experience going through a modern assessment that's really credible, ensures that there's no adverse impact, there's no bias, it ensures that it's fair, and it's using all the best practices, but an experience that individuals love taking and benefit from. And you can provide that for every single person as they apply. So as you're getting overwhelmed with more and more people applying online, so it is possible now in 2025 to have a really positive experience and measure durable skills as part of that initial screen of candidates.
And I think that candidate experience thing is just so important, because I think what tools like yours do is they just give people that kind of instant feedback that we all kind of crave whenever we go through some kind of process like this. So people are sort of taking away insights and things that they can work with, whatever the outcome of the interview is.
It's amazing, especially if you think of early career. I mean, I'm very lucky. I studied international development, and I was going down a career path around the not-for-profit space. And it just so happened that I discovered very early that I was an entrepreneur. But if I look at my Plum profile, a lot of the information was there to tell me that I would be much better suited being an entrepreneur, much better suited in business, much better suited in innovative, fast-paced environments.
And can you give us an example of this working in practice in early careers?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we love working with Scotiabank, who was really bold. They were ahead of the curve, and they eliminated resumes for all their campus hires. So they used to only hire from 5 universities and colleges. And so what would happen is they'd be competing for the same pool of talent from all their banks and consulting firms. And so they were really bold, eliminated resumes, and had people apply with their Plum profile. And what that's able to do is that it matches them to 14 different jobs at the bank. So somebody might apply to be a financial analyst, but actually be a much better fit as an account manager. And it'll match them based on their durable skills and help them select who to bring in for that structured interview. And the results are that they're now hiring from 33 different colleges and universities. They've increased their hiring of underrepresented minorities to 60%, and they've doubled retention by screening in all these people that they wouldn't have been looking at before.
And as a final question for you, what do you hope the future looks like? What's your vision for the future around this, particularly for Gen Z, but also it's only a couple of years before Generation Alpha starts hitting the workforce as well. And then we are talking about an AI native kind of cohort. So what do you think the future is going to look like?
I mean, my kids are Generation Alpha, and I know that the world is changing so quickly that what I want for them is, I don't care if they're going to become doctors, lawyers, teachers, nurses. I want them to find careers that are going to make them happy, fulfilled, and thrive. They need to be self-aware about their durable skills and where those best fit. And they need employers that are going to value those durable skills. So I hope that we're talking less by the time they hit the workforce around, do you know, this hard skill or that hard skill, and more around, we're looking for these type of behaviors. Is that the thing that's your superpower? Is that the thing that gets you out of bed in the morning, excited about the work you're going to do? Or is that the thing that frankly is not the best use of your time and resources and is really draining? And so I'd love to see the world switch where we're really prioritizing where we're going to get the most productivity out of people. And in exchange, they're getting the most fulfillment from their work.
Caitlin, thank you very much for talking to me.
Thank you for having me.
My thanks to Caitlin. You can follow this podcast on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can search all the past episodes at recruitingfuture.com. On that site, you can also sign up for our weekly newsletter, Recruiting Future Feast, and get the inside track on everything that's coming up on the show. Thanks very much for listening. I'll be back next time, and I hope you'll join me.
This is my show.